Hi, I'm Linda Mechner, back again with Why Eating Healthy is Not Enough. I'm here today with Marcella Friel, food and forgiveness mentor for health conscious women. Marcella, welcome today. And I always like to start with a personal story because it really helps to frame the work that you do and why you do what you do.
Mm. Oh, Linda, thank you so much for inviting me on this summit. I'm really happy to be here. And hello, everybody, and welcome. So as Linda said, yeah, my name is Marcella Friel, and I am a food and forgiveness mentor, and I help health-conscious women like you, probably like most of you watching. I help women like you heal the traumas that might cause you to soothe yourself with food. And Linda, how I came to this work, it's kind of a, windy story like it is with so many of us on this path, right? I actually worked in the natural foods world for about 20 years. And I was a natural food chef and I was a culinary instructor. And that work came out of my desire to heal my own sugar addiction. When I was 34 years old, I became pre-diabetic, and that's kind of a whole long story in itself. But I began this journey to explore the role of food in healing my sugar addiction. I had candida, I had a bunch of things going on like that. And so I developed, this professional credential as a natural food chef, and I taught natural foods culinary arts for 9 years. And that was all wonderful and great. And simultaneously, while I was doing all of that, I was also in 12-step recovery for another area of my life. And I also have been a student and practitioner of Buddhist meditation and Buddhist teachings since 1987. So I kind of had these like 3 tracks of healing and the work that inner work and then outer work that I was doing, which was the Buddhist meditation, the 12-step recovery, and the natural foods work. And somewhere in my culinary career, I realized I needed a depth charge, that I felt this calling to be working at a deeper level than just simply teaching about, soups and stews and stocks and sauces and Thai food and Latin American food and all that kind of stuff. So, I began this process of inquiry that led me to become a client of tapping, EFT, which I'll talk about very soon. And I actually learned about EFT tapping from my hairdresser of all people. I was going to get a haircut, and she said, I've learned about this thing called tapping. It's really cool. Do you want to try it? And 5 minutes into it, something that I had been holding on to for about 20 years just went poof. It was incredible. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I became a client of a tapping practitioner for about 3 years. And then it occurred to me, okay, I'm a chef and I'm doing tapping. I'll help people figure out what to eat and I'll use tapping to do it. Well, Linda, little did I know what I was stepping into. So as I began this work, I began to hear women telling me stories about, the traumas that they had experienced and the beliefs that were holding them back. And I began to basically fuse all of these threads of work. So I do tapping as a trauma resolution tool. I draw heavily on my history as a Buddhist practitioner and on the principles of 12-step recovery. And I work at a really, really deep level with women. So, the food is kind of like the tip of the iceberg. And you probably see this in your work as well. It's like, the fibromyalgia or the thyroid issues or what have you. It's like the tip of the iceberg. And then you kind of peel that layer off and you go underneath and it's like, wow. So that's how I got into it. And I'll just say one last thing, which is that, I came from a background of multiple complex trauma myself and have used a lot of different tools to heal. As I just mentioned, the tapping for me, hands down, has been the most transformative tool. It's the one that has really enabled me not just simply to like accept what happened, but to actually transform it. And that's exactly the same kind of results that I see in my work with my clients. And it's like I said to you before we started talking, I have no idea who or where or what this comes from, but I'm just so grateful because it's really amazing.
It is. It's such a gift. I mean, this technique, almost more than any other technique, it's like magic. I think I first came across EFT, probably more than 10 years ago. And I've used it intermittently with myself. I use it with my clients as well, but not to the degree that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I find myself using it whenever I feel anxious. I'll take a minute or 5 minutes and do a little bit of tapping. And then whatever I was anxious about, it's like it's not even a thought anymore. I forget that I was even having those thoughts. I mean, forget just not being anxious. It's like it's gone.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So fabulous. So do you have any stories maybe about how you use this with your clients? Because stories are the best illustrations of how things work.
Yeah, so I have so many stories. Oh my gosh. But before I get into that, let me talk a little bit about what tapping is, because not everybody, people might not know exactly what it is. So the way I think about tapping is that it's a form of emotional acupuncture. That's how some people describe it. And what we do when we tap is we fingertip tap on points that are at or near the ends of certain acupuncture meridians while we're recollecting a stressful situation. So I became really convinced of the power of tapping when I lost my keys, and I was looking around my house for my keys, and I was like, where are my keys? And then all of a sudden I remembered, like, wow, they're in my gym bag. Okay, great. And it's like, whoa, tapping really works. So what the tapping does is the tapping itself actually acts like a circuit breaker on the electromagnetic signal of the distress, and it interrupts the signal. So tapping impacts the part of the brain that we call the limbic system. And this is the center of like emotional self-regulation. It's where like a lot of traumatic memories are stored. And the tapping kind of disrupts that system. So like you said, Linda, it's really easy to you can kind of forget that you even had the anxiety. You can you actually look for it and you can't even find it. So it's pretty powerful. And there's a saying in the tapping world, try it on everything. So like I used it for losing my, my keys, but there are people, for example, in like Rwanda who are using tapping for, the children who have survived like the genocide in Rwanda. Like it can work for the entire spectrum of human experience. And so for me, as I said, I work with women to help heal their relationship with food, help them forgive themselves. Love and forgive yourself, your food, and your figure is what I like to say. And I have so many client stories. One of them is just something that happened very recently with a woman who, like so many of my clients, was struggling with yo-yo dieting, a lot of body shame, extra body weight that she's been carrying. She herself is a therapist, and she actually is a trauma therapist. And, she's been dealing with these issues for about 40 years. And like, she knows, like she can connect the dots and she knows what it's all about. But she hasn't been able to actually, break that limbic response, so to speak. So she chose to entrust me with a very deep sexual abuse trauma that she had experienced when she was just beginning her career as a trauma therapist. And we did a lot of tapping on this. And there's a variant of tapping that I use that's a kind of soul retrieval process where we actually journey back to the younger self and tap on her, like visualize tapping on her. And we re-enter the scene of the trauma and tap on that younger self experiencing the trauma and then redo the situation, This is called matrix re-imprinting. It was created by an EFT master named Carl Dawson, and he's really amazing. So I have to credit Carl with this work, and I'm certified in this process. So we did this whole journey where she was able to go back literally tap on her younger self and get her out of that situation and say to the abuser, like, no more, and my body is mine, and so on. And afterward, she said, I have no desire to binge anymore. Like, that is gone. I can feel the weight releasing from my body. The shame that I have been carrying for 40 years, it's like, just like what we said, it's gone. I can't find it anymore. It's like, where did my shame go? So that's just like one example. And yeah, I get to do this like regularly with people. I mean, I have so many more stories like that, but that's just one,
Yeah, what a fabulous story. And I love the going back to the younger self and working on the younger self, because then, if you can go back and fix it when you're young, it's sort of, and then you speed up, you eliminate all of the years of re-traumatizing yourself with the memories.
Yeah. A trauma therapist that I was working with recently said something really interesting. She said, trauma lives on in our habits. Have you ever heard that before?
Like that, no, but it's so true. I mean, I think that the biggest trauma we experience is the trauma in our own heads of the memories, right? That what we tell ourselves about what happened to us, what it means
Exactly.
to the rest of our lives. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that in terms of the path of healing, healing at that root level, like really being able to resolve that trauma, that's the beginning. And then once that's cleared, like, what are the self-care habits that you need to put in place?
Right.
How do you prioritize self-care? Do you prioritize self-care? All of that. So that's the journey that
Right.
I take people on.
It's so interesting too, because 40 years of binge eating, right? Or I mean, for most of us, when we binge eat like that, it changes our blood sugar, right? It can lead to insulin resistance. And so, there's this mental, emotional level that needs to be addressed, but then there's also this physical level too that needs to get healed. And, and that takes time. If you are in, pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, it takes a little bit of time to start to shift that pattern.
Right.
But I think doing that emotional piece first is what allows it to happen, right? Like if you don't do the emotions first, trying to fix the physical, it's an uphill climb. It's like you've got to white knuckle your way through, and then the emotions of white knuckling are just harmful. So,
yeah, right. Yeah. So you must see this in your work too, because I remember you said you're working with, hormones and all of that. And, what I really get now, like, hormones are kind of the engine of the emotional body.
Right.
And they're really connected. Like, we think our emotions are one thing and then our body is another, but, they actually track quite closely, so that when you change the emotional relationship to an experience, you change your physiology as well.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just love your approach, because EFT is so gentle. It's so easy. One of the things I love about EFT is that you don't have to go back to the traumas and relive them to use the technique.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, even though that happened, you don't have to tear it apart and re-traumatize yourself in order to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's just a fabulous technique.
Yeah, or you might go back very briefly, but you don't have to go all the way in. And if you're working especially with a skilled tapping practitioner, they can kind of guide you through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know you touched a little bit on the range of things that EFT works for, but maybe you could talk about that a little bit more, because I think sometimes, EFT is so broad, and so it's such a powerful technique. And I'd love for you to, maybe just talk a little bit about some of the other health issues that it's been well documented to be successful for.
Yeah, well, there's so many of them, so for me and my work with my clients, one of the most fun applications of EFT is to use it to release a craving for a binge food, what I call a trigger food. So oftentimes in my workshops, I'll have everybody sit in a circle and we bring out our trigger foods, and everybody's like, oh no, somebody's going to see what I eat, oh no, wait, but like the chocolate comes out and the chips and the milkshakes and the cappuccinos and all this stuff. And you can sit with this food in front of you and, activate the craving, right?
Mhm.
And then just tap. Even though I'm craving this food, I deeply love and accept myself. And then just really tap. And, then the question I ask in that tapping sequence is, what is it that I'm really craving? Like, what is it that I really want? And when we get to that level, I mean, I often like hold a trash can out and like it all just goes in the trash. Like, I don't even want it anymore. So that's kind of like a really fun, but very helpful level of working. Another level is, again, another client story, like one of my clients, she's been struggling with like putting her clothes on and looking at herself in the mirror and being kind of disgusted by her roles and so on, and feeling like she looks just like her mother.
Mhm.
So this is like a deeper level. Okay, so like, even though I really hate the fact that I look like my mother, I'm going to love myself anyway, right? And really going through and releasing that anger and forgiving,
Mhm.
that connection with mom. And then, the next layer of that is like, okay, so I love my body as it is, more than just acceptance. Um, our bodies are miraculous. They really are. And they deserve a lot of, love and respect. Um, Another one, like working with like late night eating.
Mhm.
I had a client who she was binging on chips late at night. And when we got, again, peeling that top layer off, going underneath it, what we discovered was, her guilt that when she was young, her mother tried to commit suicide. And,
Mhm.
she felt responsible for her mother's pain. And this is something she had been carrying for a really long time. So we used the tapping to clear that. And again, that matrix re-imprinting process. And she was really able to clear it very profoundly and, got rid of the chips and started growing sprouts all over her kitchen and lost 20 pounds in the process. You know, um, so what I find the result of tapping work to be is, in the tapping world, we say unconditional self-love is the antidote for whatever distress you are under. And that comes from the creator of tapping, Gary Craig. Yeah, right? Unconditional self-love.
Yeah.
So even though I'm having this problem, I love myself. So like, what is the problem? The problem could be anything. So there are other people in the tapping world who
Mhm.
use tapping for like autoimmune conditions, anxiety and depression, fear of public speaking, weight loss obviously is a huge one. I'm trying to think of some other big ones, prosperity, it's a, hmm?
Oh, yeah, prosperity, but I was going to say phobias. Phobias is one of the really fun ones because they disappear like that.
They disappear like that. That's right. Yeah, allergies is another one. Allergies in the matrix re-imprinting world, allergies are considered to be phobias that are internalized.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
It is.
So an allergy, like again, peel the layer of the allergy off and you have, where did this allergy begin? Where did it start?
Yeah, you know what? All right, a little bit about me. I actually have a nut allergy, and it's not like an anaphylactic, I'm going to need an epi shot kind of
Mm-hmm.
allergy, but I'm that sensitive. Like even a minute accidental exposure causes me horrific breakouts that take months to go away.
Yeah.
And and that affects my whole immune system. And then looking back at my life, when I finally realized it, I realized I've probably been allergic to nuts like that for my whole adult life because I've been having those horrible breakouts for my whole adult life, and I could never get a handle on it no matter what I did. And so it would be very interesting to use EFT to try to turn that around because I'm committed to someday being able to eat nuts again because I love nuts.
I love that. Did you hear that power statement? I am committed to being able to eat nuts again. All right. Even though I've had this allergy, there's your setup statement. I am committed.
Aw,
I am committed to being allergy free. I'm committed to eating nuts again and enjoying them.
I love it. I
There
love
you
it.
go. There you go.
Like getting like tears in my eyes. I'm so, yeah, I never really thought about using EFT on that, but I'm going to do it and I'm going to share my journey in the Facebook group.
You know, that's so funny. EFT, it's kind of like V8. You might be too young to remember these TV commercials. There used to be these old TV commercials. I could have had a V8. And people, like all the time, people go, oh, I could have tapped on that, or I can tap on, I forget. So yeah, in the tapping world, we say, try it on everything.
Right, right.
Yeah. And it might, Linda, it might take a bit of a journey. Like it might take several rounds of tapping. It might take a while.
Yeah.
So sometimes it happens really quickly and then sometimes it takes time. It depends on sort of the intensity of how deeply embedded it is in your field.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that the roots are really deep because it was so long ago. And anyway, yeah, I can't even imagine what the real root of it is. But anyway, so oh my God, this has been an amazing. You've been amazing with this information and this technique. It is so life changing, and I know you have a free gift for our listeners. Do you want to share a bit about that?
Yes, I do. I just have to remember what I called it. Okay, Befriending Your Inner Rebel. Befriending Your Inner Rebel. So I'm sure people watching can identify with this. When it comes to being good with food, right? I think all of us have this rebel who comes out, who says like, I don't care how fat I get, I'm going to eat that food anyway, or I don't care, I'm going to have that sugar. Like, don't tell me what to do. So this is a big piece of, how we can quote unquote sabotage ourselves, right? This rebellious part of ourselves comes along, right? Just as we're trying to set our best intention, okay, I'm going to be good and I really mean it this time, this rebel comes along and says, oh yeah, watch this. So it's a mini course, Befriending Your Inner Rebel, that is a talk by me and my co-teacher, Mary Sheila Ganella of Occidental Nutrition. She co-teaches my program with me. And we talk about, what this rebel is really about and what is it that the rebel really needs and how do we bring that rebel on our side. It isn't about hating her, fighting her, getting rid of her. It's about befriending her and loving her and getting her on board. So there's a talk by me and Mary Sheila. And then the gift also consists of 2 different tapping sequences that are really common for people who struggle with rebellion. And there's also an EFT tapping chart in there. So it's kind of like a get started, do it yourself, get started on tapping mini course. That my hope is that as you do this course, that you will come to make peace and calm your nervous system down around this rebellious part, because it can be so baffling, right? I was so good, and then all of a sudden I ate a whole sleeve of Ritz crackers. Well, okay, all right. Let's come back to square one here. Let's see what we can learn from this. So that's what the course is about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds incredibly valuable. I know I will be checking it out.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here with us today. I got so much out of this, and who knows, it might even help me get over my nut allergy.
Yeah, well, thank you, Linda. And, I guess the last thought I just want to leave everybody with is, healing is possible. We can actually heal. We can cross over. We can do this. And really, we need each other to do it, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so I heard somebody say recently, you can't become yourself by yourself. So it's wonderful, everybody listening to the summit and tuning in is reaching out, for this amazing support. So yeah, thank you for allowing me to be part of it. And healing is possible. We can do it.
Yep, right on. Thank you again so much, and we will see you all later. I hope you got as much out of this as I did, and I'll see you on the next video.